AJ Willoughby with you again on another product call Monday evening. And tonight we have probably the best product that we've ever had that we're going to be introducing to you. And that is the product, actually the man behind the product. It is our own Dr. Fred Templeman, formerly board certified primary care physician in the US and Canada. He has served for a number of years in the Canadian Diplomatic Corps with assignments in Haiti, Trinidad, and Barbados. And as a result of his experiences all around the world, he speaks several different languages. He's got a wide range of knowledge of folk remedies that he learned about in all these years of service. He is the world's leading authority on the amazing botanical and the superfruit, the mangosteen fruit. He's an author of several books and travels around the world studying botanicals and their nutrients. Dr. Templeman, welcome. You are the chairman of M Global Scientific Advisory Council, and tonight we are discovering why that is.
Well, go with your questions. Anything that can be said on primetime TV, we can answer here.
No. Primetime PBS.
Well, and we've got joining you tonight, you know, on a very special day, a day where he becomes just a little bit older. You know, our very own Vice President, Senior Vice President of Communications, Mr. Dave Wett. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
My pleasure, thanks.
And we also have our master distributor, the man who was there from the very, very beginning, number one of our distributors, Mr. Dennis Ligon. Dennis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I love the fact that Dr. Templeman has about 85 titles. Dave's a vice president. I'm the guy that just was there from the beginning. He's around, let him in the building, so that's his claim to fame.
Well,
I'll trade checks with you any day.
There we go. There we go. So, Dr. Templeman, let's go ahead. Let's just dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background before you devoted the bulk of your research to botanicals and the mangosteen and M Global. Where did it all start for Dr. Templeman?
Well, it kind of started when I was in the third world, working as a Canadian diplomat. I got into the habit of going and following traditional medical practitioners. I was just real curious about how people did things where there really wasn't the preponderance of North American medicine that we have here. And it began when I had a friend with some problems with his skin. And he was just a friend. I wasn't a doctor at that time. And he'd been complaining about this. And then one day he came back to me and his skin was all clear. It was easy to see because it had been on his face. And it was clear. And I asked him, how did you do that? And he said, I went to see a bush doctor. And so I went with him to see the bush doctors. And I followed several of them around in Trinidad and 4 of them in Haiti, because they actually have specialties in the traditional medicine world out there. There was one guy who did do nothing except massage, and then there were a couple who didn't do anything except herbal remedies, and then there was a 4th guy. And he was out there. There were about 12 of them, I guess, in the country. They were old interns from the only hospital in the country. Well, there are 2 hospitals, but they were called quacks. That's what they were called. That was their name, Le Quack. And it meant that they took outdated medications from North America and injected them, old antibiotics, willy-nilly for everybody who was sick. They were horrible examples of the worst kind of thing you can do to sort of encourage drug resistance. But I love to watch them and watch how they worked with people. The Haitian people believe that the doctors, these traditional doctors, are kind of like magicians, shamans, the way that when we went down to South America with medical students down to Peru up into the jungle, we met a lot of shamans up there as well. But they believed that if the doctor had to ask questions about what was wrong with you, that was less and less evidence that they knew what they were talking about. So these guys would come in and they'd touch people, they'd talk to other members of the family, but not the person themselves. Then they make their diagnosis and do the prescription, whatever they were going to do. But I was fascinated with that. And the reason that I had not originally gone into medicine is I had a blood phobia. If I cut my finger, I fainted. So I thought I could just never become a doctor. But when the hurricane hit, and at that point in time, I was in charge of the mission, and I was able to fly around the country with all of the doctors from the WHO and watch the kinds of things that they did in the public health arena. And I became very, very convinced that there was a way to do medicine that was fascinating and that would save hundreds of lives. So I became interested in medicine. And then when I either had to make a decision, I was going to become a career diplomat for good and take my next posting to Costa Rica, or I could quit and see if I couldn't get into medical school. So I quit. And I went into a medical school where 80% of the students were women. And so I became a minority. And it's one of the few times in my life I've been a minority. But I became a minority in a woman-dominated medical school and learned medicine in a different way. Because if you think that female-dominated medical schools are not the same, are the same, they're not. They cover all of the same basics, but they have a wider respect for instinct, interestingly. So that there was a good medical school apprenticeship. And I came out having been taught all of the things about drugs, and I wrote prescriptions. I did consider, despite my background, that prescriptions were the best way to go, and I wrote hundreds of them every week. I saw about 35 to 40 patients per day when I was working as a doctor in a clinical situation, which I did for over 25 years. So I didn't start medical school till I was 36, so you can imagine how old I am now. But that was the beginning.
So tell us a little bit then. So now you, for 20 years, practiced in medicine and had your own office, correct?
I did for the first 12 years. Then I went into a practice which was owned by a hospital, and there were multiple doctors in the practice.
So tell me, what was it that prompted you to move towards natural medicine?
Well, after I had been practicing for about 12 years, I saw a young man. He was in the hospital, thank goodness, and he was being treated for depression by a psychiatrist who prescribed much higher levels of medication than a normal family doctor would. And this man arrested and died. Just one morning, he was eating his breakfast and he died. And we happened to be close by. Luckily, we were able to shock him and get him back. But when we looked into the case, and I canceled my people for that day and just looked at his case all day, it became apparent the only reason he died was the amount of medication that the doctor had given him. So he had been killed by a doctor. And as I began to read more and more about death by medicine and a number of other things that have been written that are on the internet, I became sensitized to the idea that the Hippocratic Oath said, first, do no harm. And I became convinced that by grabbing my prescription pad first time that anything happened in an encounter, that I may have been doing more harm than good. So I started looking at things that I could use that would help people with the health problems that brought them through my door, but which would not have the downside or the dangers of drugs. And I was amazed to find that here I was back in my pre-time, I was looking at herbal products, principally what we call botanicals. And I began to use them. I began to prescribe them. And I used large numbers of them, got myself into the ringer once with my employer, who would have preferred that I write standard prescriptions, but I convinced them that what I was doing was acceptable. And so I morphed over a period of years from somebody who did nothing but write prescriptions to someone who would recommend a lot of things that were not prescription and were lifestyle changes before I wrote prescriptions.
Now let's dive a little bit into your personal life here. So, we've heard a little bit about the professional end. You've been, a doctor for, most of your life and all this stuff. So, but tell us a little bit about, you've got a small family. I've got 7 kids. Now, a lot of people think that's a lot of kids, 7 kids, but you dwarf my family. Tell us about that.
It was a different time and a different place. And frankly, we were living sometimes in third world countries where my wife had a maid and a cook and a few other people to help. So it was easier to have kids, and we had 10.
10 kids.
I regret it. Dennis just flipped off his chair. I don't regret it at all. I consider perhaps it to be the greatest achievement of my life, to be able to be the father of 10 children. I have a son now who has 7, like you do. And I was in his house, about a week ago, and I had to leave because it was driving me nuts. And I kept thinking, it was like that for years and years in my own house. And I don't know how I did it, but I consider it to be the greatest achievement of my life, that and going back to medical school at age 36, perhaps. But yeah, I'm still close to all my children, close to my grandchildren. We have 40 of them, and most of them live within a couple of miles of us. So I just left 4 of them. And there's hardly a time in my house where there aren't at least 4. There's more than there are dogs and cats.
Wow. 40 grandkids, and you spend quite a bit of time around family and grandkids and everything. It's pretty important to you, isn't it?
Yes, and when you think about it, a parent has to go to all of the ball games and concerts and plays that their children go to. But when you're a grandparent, you go to 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 times as many as any individual parent. So I sometimes have to choose. Last Saturday, I had to choose between 6 events, and I went to 4. And that took my whole day up. So, but it's great. I mean, the contact with the younger generation when you're old and feeble like I am really keeps you young.
Definitely. I'll tell you. Yeah, grandkids, they become a huge part of your life. I understand that. Now, so all this family, but you've got all your responsibilities within the network. Do you still practice and stay up to date on general medicine today?
I am the medical director for a medical spa here in the Valley. It doesn't take a lot of my time, but it allows me to remain as an active practitioner. So I have an active license to practice medicine here in Utah, and I do. But I spend most of my time, a couple of hours every morning. When I wake up, I get into the books or into the TED Talks or into the YouTube stuff to stay aware, because of course I still have to have a certain number of hours of continuing medical education every year to retain my license. But the reason why I do it is because it's so exciting right now. This is a time in the world's history when more progress is being made in the medical arts, and I would consider supplementation a medical art, if you'll allow me that extension, in the medical arts that has happened in such a long, long time. And so as we can now swab the inside of your mouth and in a matter of hours tell you, hey, here's some drugs you should never take. We're getting to the point where soon we're going to be able to swab the inside of your mouth and be able to say to you, hey, here's the products in the natural market that are really going to be beneficial for you. That's exciting. We've never been able to get diagnostic tests that would tie to the idea of providing certain specific supplements for the body in order to overcome conditions that perhaps had evolved through a lack of attention or through the depletion of soils. Lots and lots of reasons for it. But very, very exciting to be alive today. And I wish I could be alive for another 35 years doing this, because it is fascinating. So I do that each morning. And then I spend a couple of hours working on some of the things that we're actually working on, because months of preparation go into the ideas that come from the field or that come from us watching what's happening in the industry and deciding where we ought to be going with new products and how we ought to improve, if we can, the products that we currently have. How do we make those hard choices? Because believe me, for every slot for a potential new product that we could bring out, there are at least 8 candidates. And so we really have to hone down on the things that are going to be the most useful, that are coming to our attention, and then start doing the actual preparing in our model of how we can bring those products to market. And I do that probably for another couple of hours a day. And I don't work more than 5 or 6 hours a day. But the fact is that I then am answering questions, or my favorite thing is to talk with people who are not well on the telephone. I like to do that. It gives me the kind of contact with patients, so to speak, that I have always enjoyed. And I'll do that for the rest of the time. And, you know, I may even take a whole day off and do nothing except play with my grandkids. But I'm having fun.
That's great. That's great. So let's go on ahead and let's bring Dave back into the picture here. Dave, now, for those that don't know, Dave Webb, now I've had the privilege of knowing Dave for almost 15 years now, close to. But Dave Webb, for those who don't know, he has been a distributor in the industry. He's been a consultant, a marketing communications leader for several different giants in the industry. And now he is our Senior Vice President of Communications here at M Global. Dave, tell us what it is that drew M Global to Dr. Templeman, and why was he the clear choice to head up the Scientific Advisory Council? And also, what does heading up the Scientific Advisory Council actually mean?
Well, you can tell by his demeanor, whatever he wants it to mean, right? That's the simple answer, but I'm teasing. But I do want to get into where our relationship continued, because we go back, Fred and I, about that same amount of time, about 15 years ago. And I've had the privilege of traveling with him. I'll do my personal relationship with Dr. T, which is independent of the professional relationship. And I want to make sure that I don't shortchange either side, because I appreciate the personal side of what I get to work with Dr. Templeman, with Ryan Anderson, with Stacy, with Dennis, with AJ's dad, with Dennis's wife. I mean, the connections that we have, I feel, are bolstered by what we share personally ahead of what we share professionally. That doesn't mean we can't be successful with one or the other, but I do truly enjoy the personal relationships I have first. So my relationship with Dr. Templeman began first at a company where, because of my role in communications and in presentation and marketing, we had many opportunities to travel together and speak and make presentations at events, anywhere from, 60 to 10,000 people, I think, were the range of audiences that we spoke with. And we did some in Spanish, and we did some in Trinidad, we did some in the United Kingdom, we did some in Southeast Asia, in Paris, in Barcelona. I mean, the ways that this man has been known to travel, I question whether diplomatic corps, which is in his resume, in his curriculum, how do you say that curriculum? Vitae. I wonder if that's just short, like a special word for secret agent, because he is, I mean, look up Chile in the 70s, look up Haiti in the 80s. I'm kind of teasing, but he might have a gun on him right now. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying he does, but I do tease. But the relationship that we had personally, I saw who he was as a human, as he relates to everybody that you've ever seen him talk to. Dr. Templeman gives a specific and direct personal connection to determine what best course of action. My favorite thing to say about Fred is, if he doesn't know, he will tell you he doesn't know, or that there's not enough research yet, or that there is no information to be had. He won't make something up just to appear impressive or knowledgeable or wise. He is those things, but he is also very, very clear. If he doesn't know or doesn't have an answer, he will tell you so that you can find out what your next step needs to be with your own medical professional. So personally, I've appreciated Dr. Templeman literally since 2004. Yeah. So we're coming up on our 15th year of working together and knowing each other. And then the attachment that we were able to get, and I say that in a lottery winning kind of way, or in a, stuck in his thumb and pulled out a plum and said, boy, what a good boy am I, or whatever those things are. When Dr. Templeman became available, and I think there is more to timing and circumstance and even serendipity than just, oh gee, how did that work out? Funny how that worked out. Because Dr. Templeman became available while we were expressing interest through no direct action of his, and no, we weren't trying to steal you from somewhere else. You weren't trying to leave somewhere else. The circumstances opened up, and we had set out as an objective, how do we get the mangosteen authority represented with our company? Mangosteen being the key fundamental ingredient within Core AO, the antioxidant power from Core AO. And then it's turned out to have a couple of parts of contribution in other products that we've developed and are developing. But when we realized the power of that superfruit, and I love your take, is that there is only one superfruit. You can't say durian is a superfruit or oranges. Well, it makes a great juice, yeah.
But superfruit is a term that my partner coined years ago.
Yes.
And everybody picked it up.
Everybody picked it up. I gave him a soapbox for a second. He was already jumping on it again. But when you look at how do you get that best represented, if your company has a product that is based on a truly super fruit, how do you get that representation? How do you get all of the validation and the research and the knowledge and the connections? He can't go through an airport in Southeast Asia with people throwing orchids and flowers at his feet, and probably other things at your feet that we don't need to talk about. But when we looked at that, we said, how do we get that as part of our company? What if we could get Dr. Templeman? Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, there's no way, because he's so connected elsewhere. Well, guess what? He became available, and we realized our good fortune because his commitment, and I don't want to speak for him, he'll correct me if I goof, his commitment is to go where the mangosteen will be best represented.
That's correct.
That was not a, can we offer more money? Because we could not. I don't mind acknowledging that if you don't. We could not offer the money that others were throwing at him, but he looked and did his due diligence, and he was able to say and confirm to us, again, hat in hand, we were, how would this work? Gosh, Fred, sure be great to work with you again, because you've got all the knowledge and the background and experience, and you have a great personality, and you love sharing with people. How could that possibly work out? We were fortunate that he didn't require just a ridiculous amount of money, which was being offered to him. What he required was...
Actually, I'm working for a ridiculous...
Hold on. It's a different kind of ridiculous. I know where you're going. I appreciate that. But he said, I want to go where the mangosteen is going to get the best attention. And not just mangosteen, but commitment to quality ingredients, high quality interactions.
Honesty and a basic science foundation for the things you're doing.
Yeah. And then that says, when he says, how can I help? We say, gosh, if we had a scientific council, if we had an advisory board, if we had a collection of like-minded and like-skilled individuals, would you head that up for us? And so now coming to the second part of AJ's question, which occurred approximately 9 weeks ago when I started speaking. I appreciate your patience, everyone. The head of the Scientific Advisory Council, which Dr. Templeman is, involves research online, research in medical facilities, research in countries where, for example, for the mangosteen, Thailand, other parts of Asia, Laos, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and then where universities are studying those things. Dr. Templeman has connections, I dare say, in the dozens of research facilities, high dozens of research facilities, and he gathers that information, he consults and advises with them for their research, not as it pertains to M Global or to our product, but as it pertains to the global spreading of this great word on this incredible fruit. And then in addition to that, there are other things. I'll start saying the nano sizing of molecules and work on things like that. We're not resting because we have the world's greatest mangosteen supplement. We're using the world's greatest mangosteen supplement in Core AO as a launching pad for what will take us to bigger and greater and bolder and more effective and more efficacious deliverables for supplementation, for wellness around the world.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here unless there was a willingness here amongst those who have the power to look at new delivery systems, to look at what's been done for years very effectively and to continue doing that, science-based, but to look at the future and what's happening out there elsewhere, and how do we manage our part of the world using those technological advances.
I'm going to jump in here with the story that, AJ, I know you probably have 12 minutes more of questions to cover in 6 minutes, but I want to share some of Dr. Templeman's passion for what we're trying to do. I'm going to put you on the spot. You can confirm or deny, but there came a time in our history about a year ago when Dr. Templeman said, we don't have the best product out there. Core AO is not the best it can be. Now we're freaking out because, yeah, no, it is. It's the best there is. And he said, yeah, it's the best we could do at the time, but we can do it better. And so he was committed to only ever supporting the best product that it could be. And we had to realize what he was saying was, we are in a state of constant improvement. We are not resting because we have a fantastic supplement, a great delivery for this mangosteen and the xanthones that are changing lives literally around the world. Fred was saying, I don't want to say this is the best thing out there because we don't have the best thing yet. We're still working on it. And so we had to say, Dr. Templeman, please can we say, this is the best that you can get anywhere at this time? What did you say?
I said it is that, but.
Not but. And we're still developing more. Right. But that is his and our commitment to having these products be the best they can be, not fill in a blank, check off the box and say, okay, we're done developing products because we just did a really good thing. We will be in constant development. We will be in constant, it's almost like a creative and joyful turmoil to always be developing the next, the new, the best improvements on. We already are. How many versions of Core AO do you think we're on right now?
We're on the 5th version.
5th version. We have already updated and enhanced and bettered the Core AO from its very, very first implementation about 2 years ago. We are now on the 5th version of that product. I need to pull my fingers over here. 5, folks, there they are. The 5th version, and we're still working on what can be better next time to help better delivery, better efficacy, all of those things. AJ, we've rambled I have rambled, just one guy. But hopefully you get an insight into who this gentleman is for the sake of all those who ever need to take something because they have a frustration or a concern.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, well, now I want to go to a man who actually began his career in the direct sales and marketing years ago, but he built a multi-million-dollar direct sales business before even opening up his first tanning salon. 24 years later, that tanning salon grew to 20 locations and a $10 million a year business. 9 years ago, he discovered network marketing for the first time with no experience, but willing to listen and follow the leaders. He went to the top of 2 company pay plans, and he's made millions of dollars. And he met his wife, Sue, through this industry, all the while doing it part-time, running his tanning salon company. And at a chance meeting with Ryan Anderson several years ago, got a chance to lead to a relationship that eventually came to the sample of the very first Ghost Stick before it was released, before it was anything. And Dennis was hooked. Shortly after that, he and his wife, Sue, gave up a high-paying position to be part of the launch of what we have today, M Global. I want to welcome one of the most humble leaders in the industry, M Global's master distributor, member number 001, Mr. Dennis Ligon. Dennis, thank you for joining us tonight. Tell us, when you heard the possibility of Dr. Templeman coming to M Global, what was your thoughts and what was it about Dr. Templeman that gave you the confidence that he was the right man to head up this position?
Well, thank you, AJ. And I can say pretty clearly that, as you said, when I started about 9.5 years ago in this industry, I was working with a company that was sort of a rival of the company you fellows were with. And we were all basically promoting the mangosteen product. We all believed in it. And when it came to proof, you guys had proof. We didn't have much except to copy what you had. So you had the mangosteen doc. We had heard about Dr. Templeman, but he wasn't part of our company. So we used to have to go out and get articles, and then we had to kind of edit wherever it mentioned your company's name. Oh, pick that out. But just show the paragraphs where Dr. Templeman would talk about the mangosteen. And literally his expertise and his knowledge on it was phenomenal. And I learned back when I met Sue, I was building a business and literally showing people how to make money. But when people would ask the tough questions about the product, I was very, very shallow in my knowledge. And so learning from Dr. Templeman things he had printed and that promoted back in reviews and so forth that we were able to dig into was where I got my knowledge about the actual mangosteen product. So he helped, even though we were a rival company at the time, we used his knowledge to help build our business because he was the expert on mangosteen. So when the chance came to get him to M, it sounded like almost unbelievable because, as you know, those companies did billions in sales of mangosteen. Here we are, a little startup, and how are you going to get Dr. Templeman to even look at you? But when I first met him and saw the kind of person he was, like you said, he's on the 5th version of the product, just like he went through 10 kids, right? He's probably halfway there now. And just so you know, Dr. Templeman, when I see you, I'll introduce you to some nice board games like Monopoly. So there are other things you can do with your time. But because I tell you, if you got any, he is a go-to, get the job done kind of guy, right? But in any case, the meeting him, when I met him, I was going through a period of like a bronchitis. And so I'd gone through these patient first. I was spending a fortune trying to get over this cough. And so Ryan says, I'm going to have Dr. Templeman call you. And of course, Dr. Templeman was, I elevated. He's way up here. I'm here. I'm like, man, don't bother him. Next thing you know, my phone rings and it's Dr. T. And he sits there and tells me what he wants me to do, which was exact opposite what everybody at Patient First had told me to do. I said, are you sure? And he said, look, I didn't really say, are you sure? I said, yes, sir. And so anyway, I followed his advice. And about 3 weeks later, I was on a vacation that M paid for, a retreat, feeling great. And I was amazed that it had worked. And of course, one of the things he told me to do is drink as much core AO as you can, drink 3 or 4 times a day. And I did. I hit it hard and it had an amazing effect. And so I saw how much he believed in the product. And for us, the product was selling well. And he talked about we had to change it. I'm like, don't change it. It's working fine. We don't need to change anything. We're selling great. No, we got to change it. And they changed again. I'm going like, what in the world? But he kept making it stronger and stronger. And right then I realized you can never question his belief and his commitment to what that product could do. And I'll end with this, AJ. The first time I ever heard Dr. Templeman speak was in Green Bay and had some people there as part of a, sort of a opportunity meeting. And he got up there and spoke and he told a story he just told right there about the fellow dying. And of course, the person comes back to life, so the story has a good ending. But when he's telling the story on stage, you ever heard him tell it? He says, and as I was practicing, I killed a guy. And he ends it right there for a while, right? And so the 5 people that I got to meet, they're looking at me like, okay, you only killed 1, okay? Come, pretty good, He's talked to a lot of people. He's only killed 1. And so anyway, so then he comes back and I'm thinking like, man, glad you brought that guy back to life. Because I'll tell you, that's not exactly a good start off to an opportunity meeting saying, okay, we only killed 1. But his honesty and the way he comes across when you meet him, he is one of these doctors that back in the old days, when they talk about the doctor that made house calls, Dr. T would be that type of doctor. He literally just shares his heart, shares his belief, and he really is committed to the mangosteen, and he will share with anybody and talk to anyone. And I know personal friends, people who are in this business, some who are just customers and some who are not really actively building it, but yet he still checks on them to see how they're doing with some advice he had given them to help them with some personal problems. So I said that goes a long way. As much as I know how many people are grabbing at his time, that he will take the time to share with individuals. So I think the greatest thing we have about Dr. Templeman, he's a great scientist when it comes to the mangosteen, but he's never lost that personal touch of the physician that, do no harm. And he's there on a personal level to just speak at your level and doesn't try to use fancy words. He brings it down to your level and says, hey, here's what you need to do. And if you don't do it, he says, listen, stupid, take what I tell you to do. And I just love that folksy type experience he has where it makes you feel he really cares about you. And I think he does. And so, in fact, I believe he does. I think we cannot have a better person as part of our brand. I think he really elevates our brand. And just so you know, just being here, seeing those beautiful signs behind you too, I thought I'd end it, make me a little sign that I'll have to put up behind me, so I have me an M sign for next time. So thank you very much for letting me share. I really love you, Dr. T, and welcome, and happy birthday, Dave.
Thank you so much, Dennis. So look, as we end this call tonight, Dr. Tillman, tell us, you know, we've heard so much, you know, as far as your credentials, as far as, you know, where you came from, a little bit about you personally, and why we're so excited about you being with M Global. Tell us, what is it that excites you the most about the future of M Global?
When I look at the makeup of the executive team on the side of the distributors, and because there is an executive over there as well, and on the side of the company, and I look at the people who are in positions of key responsibility, and I've been around the business for a long time, and I've seen a lot of things in life, and I couldn't pick a better team. And that's what I think is going to change the future. There have been a lot of changes in such a short period of time. And normally that would have spun things completely out of equilibrium, but it hasn't. We've wobbled, but we haven't toppled. And the fact is that the people who are in positions of key responsibility, including some that most of you don't even know about, those people are the very best that I have seen in the business. I just sat down for a few minutes before I came in here with Glenn Oliver. Glenn has opened many businesses around the world. He is logistically the top of the hill. He's the king of the hill. And Glenn is your man behind the scenes, making sure that in a time of enormous turmoil, we can all survive and thrive. And that's what I see making the future greater. The talent that is on both sides of the equation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much, Dr. Tippleman. Mr. Dennis Ligon, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on the call. Mr. Dave Webb, happy birthday to you again. And thank you so much. In honor of your birthday, I had to wear my Dave Webb glasses. So, you know, I could try to resemble you as much as possible.
I'll try to build this out too. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, get that a little longer, and then we're gonna have the deal. I'm already copying you on the head thing, so. But thank you guys, appreciate it so much. A lot of calls happening the rest of this week. You can always go to empowerplan.com/calendars, and you're gonna get a list of all the different calls that are available from corporate and others. So. Go and
pitch for tomorrow night. The tomorrow night, Tuesday corporate call. We have a special guest. One of our keynote speakers for convention has agreed to come on and give us a little preview of his story, of not his whole message and his whole story, but he is someone that I have known and appreciated for a long time. And I know that his contribution is going to change lives at this event. And he is going to be fantastic. That'll be tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, just like tonight. And again, we'll be eager to share that on Tuesday night. And then AJ, your dad Andy has the call on Thursday and Monday morning. And Kat has a call on Thursday night. And then Dennis and Sue have their leadership training, their business building call Saturday mornings. Rain or shine, hurricane or no, they're Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time. We really appreciate all of your dedication. This is like the hot spot right here. We got AJ and Dennis at the same spot at the same time. This won't happen again until I think the planets align in 2027. So enjoy it, everybody. This is going to be awesome.
Well, y'all have a great night. Thank you again, everybody. Have a blessed one. Talk to y'all later.
Bye-bye.